Along with you on this Thursday, week almost over here on the Exchange, joined by my buddies Mary Ann Michaels, Fritz the Night Owl, and Charlie Evers. Do want to mention our sponsors, as the Exchange is brought to you by the Ohio Neck and Back Pain Relief Centers, Scott M. Gray, D.C., across from the Marion Center, between TSC and Kroger. Call 740-386-6580. Night Owl Theater, located on the net at fritzlives.com. For more info, email nightowltv@yahoo.com. Bucyrus Placemats, to put an ad, call Wayne in at 419-562-8473. Located at 116 Wayne Avenue in Bucyrus. Catch them on the net at bucyrusplacemats.com. And now we do each and every day, as we do each and every day, we're going to head over to my buddy Charlie Evers for Fascinating Facts.
I thought I'd bring something up. We're all familiar with the new post office on Barks Road, but you know we had a post office annex a long time ago, 61 years ago. A post office annex was built on Park Boulevard. Of course, later on it was phased out and it became a printing company. Now, there are a lot of things that used to be that aren't. Highway Roller Arena. A lot of our audience used to roller skate there and have parties at the Highway Roller Arena. Harding High School used to graduate at Chautauqua Pavilion. That was in Garfield Park.
Yeah, oh, yes.
Yeah, so it was a long time. You know, a lot of things have changed.
The Chautauqua Pavilion is leveled and gone.
Oh, yes. It was a pretty rickety old building, rather dark and damp. But nevertheless, Harding High School graduated there, just like they do now in the Coliseum.
Now, we've never done anything on Crystal Lake. Now, was that the roller rink you were talking about?
No. The Crystal Lake had its own roller rink.
Right.
And it burned down, back in the
70s.
80s, I think.
No, I got the paper.
Oh, you do?
I do.
Well, good for you.
I know. Stumped you there, Charlie.
I saw it burn down, but I didn't realize it was that long ago.
Yeah, 1974, I believe.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Can you believe that? The end of Crystal Lake. Mm-hmm. I recently went over to Crystal Lake and looked around. The lake's still there.
Didn't go swimming?
Well, I didn't want to get hit by the pillars or boulders that are floating around in the area right now.
And water moccasins.
Water moccasins, leeches, all kinds of things. But it's beautiful.
Yes.
It is a beautiful place to go. I understand why they call it Crystal Lake. Do you know why they call it Crystal Lake?
Because it's beautiful.
And it looked like crystal.
Yeah, you know, there are postcards floating around Marion from 1948 that had a picture of the swimming pool at Crystal Lake calling Marion Spring-Fed Swimming Pool.
We don't have a spring-fed anything, do we?
No, we don't.
No, we don't. See, once again, false advertisement. Now, if you want something to do on this Thursday night, you don't have anything to do, you're looking for something to do, here's what you can do. You can go over to our buddy Fritz the Night Owl for the flick pick. Fritz?
Okay, tonight we have a visual and musical delight in every sense of the word. The movie is called Yellow Submarine, 1968, featuring visual animations of the Beatles and, of course, their real voices. John, Paul, George, Ringo, Sleepy, Grumpy, Dopey, and Doc. Kidding about the last group. Nonetheless, the story basically is an old guy escapes from Liverpool, comes to the Beatles, wants the Beatles to help him save Pepperland, who have been taken over by the Blue Meanies. And the Blue Meanies have the ability to suck the color out of people using splotch guns. They have turned everybody to stone, eliminated all music, love, and life. They are helped by the Snapping Turtle Turks, Woot Beasts, Apple Bonkers, and other malicious manifestations going away. The animation is unlike any you'll ever have seen up to that point. It combines sort of like the op art poster work of Peter Max, the color shadings of the Mannerists, the whimsy of people involved in Dada, a bit of surrealism, a bit of Aubrey Beardsley, some of Dr. Seuss, M.C. Escher, really a visual feast. You'll also travel with the Beatles as they visit various seas. such as The Seas of Time and Science and Holes and Nowhere. All along the way, of course, you're hearing some great Beatles songs, most of which appeared prior to the film in the Sgt. Pepper album, although there are some new original tunes in this. But you'll see animated visual manifestations of such hits as Nowhere Man, Eleanor Rigby, All You Need Is Love. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is just a visual delight, and many, many, many more. You'll also figure out the meaning of the lyrics. All those lonely people, where do they all come from? And you'll see Father Mackenzie there in the corner writing a sermon that no one will hear. So it's a visual musical delight, recommended highly, was great when it came out in 1968, is great today. Yellow Submarine, the voices of, visual representations of the Beatles.
You know, I was not I didn't really listen to much music when I was young, but I've come to really like the Beatles. I like their music. I think it's great. What do you think, Marianne?
I do too. I think you can't help but like it. And I love that imagination. I love that song.
It holds up.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody can do it like the Beatles. I think it was one of a kind. Do you like the Beatles, Charlie?
Yes, I did, even though they came along, when I was a little older. When I graduated, we had no rock and roll. And so when the Beatles came along with their long hair, that was quite stunning. And Ed Sullivan, of course, had them first on his show. And people kind of either turned them down or really liked them. But eventually, their music became rather classics.
Absolutely, a lot of classics.
Well, that's a mistake. It wasn't Imagination, was it? The song by the Beatles? It was Imagine.
Yeah.
I knew that didn't sound right after I said it. Yeah, Imagine. I think
But
that's
there was a song called Imagination.
Yeah,
It's
but-
funny.
right. But this is the one.
Sunny Day Funny or something like
Right.
that. Yeah.
But this, the lyrics are so lovely, and the melody is beautiful.
Well, as we do each and every Thursday, we do want to make sure we get this in. We head over to one of my dear, dear friends, Brenda Donegan, for Brenda Donegan's Ohio. Brenda, where are we going this week?
Well, we're not going too far, although I just returned from a trip to Virginia. Been gone 5 days. Would you believe that all the time down there we found gas for $3.89 a gallon?
Ooh.
So anyway, because the gas prices have been high, I've been kind of staying close by. And so today I thought we'd head out 309 west and into Hardin County. But you don't want to stay on 309 all the way. You want to turn off and get on Wildcat Pike and go through where the old order Amish live. Make sure you take a stop at the general store and load up with homemade noodles and bread and all those goodies that they have there at the store. And you just kind of want to steal away and take a step back in time. You'll see horses and buggies, and you'll see their homes. A lot of times you'll see their beautiful wash hanging on the line that they've washed in a wash tub, without electric. I think they still have, wringer washers. And but they do hang out beautiful laundries several times a week, and very private people. But I've noticed that as you drive along, a lot of times they'll wave at you. If you wave at them and smile, they'll wave and smile back. And I think that's because they've become so accustomed to us that they feel that we are their friends now, and not so much their enemies as we were when they first moved into this area. And then as you get on into Canton, one of the places that you really want to stop is at the Sullivan Johnson Museum. They are one of the nicest museums in the area. You've heard of the Kenton Toys, and you know that Kenton is the home of the Gene Autry toys and guns and all of the toys that he had. Also at the museum is a Civil War room and all of the Jacob Parrott medals. And then the one room also is a relic room, a recreated 1890s parlor, Native American room, and a military display. And the second property that the museum has is out by the Hardin County Fairgrounds, where they have a one-room schoolhouse, a log house, a general store, a train depot, and a historic barn. Now that is available, open only by appointments, so you might want to call the Hardin County Visitors Bureau and make an appointment to get over there and see that. But all of these are free. So that's the important thing, especially on tight budgets like we all have right now. The third place I want to mention is the Organette Museum, House Mechanical Museum. It's north of Kenton on 68. Do you know what a organette is?
A
Scott?
small
I do.
organ,
You do?
No,
You don't?
no. What's an organette?
small organ.
It's a small organ, many times, just a tabletop. And they were played, a lot of times people cranked them with their foot, sometimes they cranked them with their hand, kind of like an organ grinder. They put pieces of music in them, like the old roller pianos and whatever, and played them. And so that was their entertainment years and years and years ago. And so this family has quite a collection of them, and they invite you to also visit their museum. So that's close by and also free. And then no trip to Hardin County would be complete without going to Mount Victory, especially if you are looking for unique gifts, crafts, or you're an antique collector. In Mount Victory, a small little town of about 600, they have 12 antique and craft stores right along the main drag there. So if you're looking for a unique gift for a wedding, a birthday, just a thank you gift, something for yourself, and that's where you really find the unique gifts, is these little out-of-the-way stores and these little mom and pop stores. So I would encourage you to stop by there. Also, you may see some Amish around the Mount Victory area too. They also have quite a few families in the area. Then, you just can't go on a day trip without eating somewhere. So the Plaza Inn is well known. And the one thing about the Plaza Inn is you can fly in and eat, and then you can walk downtown. It's not too far, a mile maybe, and visit all the craft stores and etc. Go back and get in your plane and fly home. So you probably wouldn't want to do that from Marion, but from people who are away and have access to their own plane. It's a good idea. And then, if you have your children, there's a couple of other places there in town that are locally family owned, and that's the Belly Acre and the the pizza place. I just lost it. I think it's Baker's Pizza, but they're both really good. Belly Buster Pizza, and they're both really good and not too far. So it's a good way to spend an inexpensive day.
With gas prices up over the $4 mark, heading to Hardin County is certainly not a bad place to go, especially with all the free activities that you can do. And we know that you visit these places because the other day I saw you driving the bus around town. You still get around. You drive that bus around.
I drove home from Virginia today.
What kind of bus?
The Primrose Retirement Community Bus.
And how large a bus are we
It's a
talking?
14 passenger.
Wow.
Oh, it's like a city bus.
Yeah.
Kind of like a city bus.
Just enough that I don't have to have a class CDL class
Right under the mark.
right there.
Perfect. Now, one thing I want to talk about today, I've had this in my notes for a few weeks and I haven't gotten around to it. Went into one of the department stores a couple weeks ago, and Katie Couric has written a new book called The Best Advice I Ever Got. And it got me to thinking. The book is just a compilation of people writing about the best advice they ever got. And I thought, boy, that would be a good question to ask this panel and to have the audience at home think about. What's the best advice they ever received? Maybe career-wise, maybe personal life-wise, anything. The best advice you've ever gotten. Charlie, what's the best bit of advice you ever got?
That's a good question. I always will remember, though, it wasn't good advice or a good statement. When I first went to work in radio, I was told, now remember, when you work here, you're no more important than the hole left in a glass of water when you take your finger out of it. And that stuck with me all these years, and I keep, that's a real downer. I mean, if you want to discourage someone, just tell them that.
I know who told you that, Charlie.
Yeah.
I know who told you
Okay.
that.
But,
I'm aware.
I've had a lot of good advice over the years. I always had older people that catered to me. I don't know why. I guess because I catered to them. And a lot of good advice over the years. But the only thing I remember is the hole in the water.
I saw his missus walking down the street the other
Yeah.
day. Absolutely. Mary Ann, what's the best advice you ever received?
All these secrets you're keeping from us.
I'll tell you during the break. As long as the wife's still around, I don't want to rock the boat.
Well, I think the best advice I've ever gotten is the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated. And I try to do that. I really do. I think to me, it's one of the wisest things there is. And I think so many people forget, that if you want to be treated a certain way, then you should treat that person that you're associated with or know. So that would be my best advice.
Brenda, what's the best advice you ever got?
Well, I want to say that it came from my grandmother, but I remember my parents saying it a lot too, so it's probably one of those things that's just passed down from generation to generation. And that was, if you can't say something nice about someone, don't say anything at all, because what goes around comes around. And so that's kind of been my motto, or tried to have that be my motto. It's very difficult to always do that, but that I strive.
Fritz, any brilliant advice?
Well, I had something that I was going to say, but then Mary Ann said which I had forgotten, but I believe, I think that
The golden rule.
The golden rule is the very, very best. But the one, when you first broached the problem, the first thing that hit my mind was somebody who was, when they knew I wanted a showbiz career, the person just said, in show business, it is so, whether it's radio, TV, theater, movies, what it is, it's so insecure that you make the money when you can. You may be on top today, but tomorrow, as good as you are, you could be, your phone won't ring for like 3 years. So you make it when you can. So that's as good as, and the spur of the moment that I come up with. So.
What about you, Scott?
Well, I was thinking, you get these advice bits all the time, from your parents that are good. But I would say career advice, the best career advice I ever got, and for some reason it sticks in my brain, is that, well, actually two things. Never try to affect a style. Even if you think people won't like what you're doing, don't try to be something you're not.
That's good.
And the second one was, and this seems strange, but I don't know why it sticks in my brain, everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time. And interviewing so many celebrities as I've done, that I was able to do it and not be jaded by what they were. Yeah,
You weren't
by
awed.
by it, because I just thought, you know what, that whether it's Helen Thomas or it's Phyllis Diller or Fritz the Night Owl or Mary Ann Michaels, they get up in the morning just like I do, and that's how it is. Even though you might have had some respect for their work, it's what they do. I've only really been in the broadcasting industry, it wasn't an awe thing, but just taken with one person, as I thought, man, I like the way they work. So that only happened one time, and that was a good relationship for me.
And we know who that is.
We know who that was. Madge.
Madge Cooper.
Cooper here in Marion. I love the way she worked. I love what she did. And watching her, for me, always was exciting. I just loved that. Going to move on to the mailbag this week. This is interesting, I think. What makes anybody on this panel choke under stress? Maybe could be athletic, could be professional, could be work-related. Charlie, what makes you stress? What makes you choke and just get frustrated?
Probably watching a medical procedure.
That would do it. Do you get nervous going to the hospital?
No, because I'm usually too far gone. Really,
Well, you had the major.
Yes, I did. And I always remember going to Riverside in Columbus and talking to the Life Flight people. And we were joking, and here I was dying, and we're joking around. That same thing happened to, who was it that died recently? On his deathbed, he was joking to someone. It was just in the news yesterday. But,
It's a good way to go out.
Oh, yeah.
In a good mood.
Go with a smile.
Yeah. Mary Ann, what do you think? Stressful, choking under stress.
Well, if I can't remember something that I should remember, or if I can't remember a person's name when I'm seeing them, and I'm embarrassed about it, and I'm not stressed, but I'm embarrassed. The mind,
That's a toughie.
yeah, sometimes, you know, you think, I should know that, but I don't know it.
Yeah. Or mispronouncing something. And I know
Yes.
I've mispronounced it moments later. I hate that. Brenda?
You know, I guess my most stressful time is what they call the white coat syndrome. Especially when you go to the doctor and you don't know, you know that there's something just not quite right, but you're not sure what it is, and you're sitting there and they're asking you these 9 million questions that they already have in the computer, because they say, well, your mother had this or your father had this, and I'm thinking, why are you asking me this? You know? But I just think it's fear of the unknown that kind of get to you. I know my blood pressure elevates a little bit under those situations.
Fritz, ever choke under stress?
Yeah, I think a difficulty where somebody like a wife or a child is in pain or having a difficulty and there is nothing you can do about it. You know what's happening, but there is absolutely nothing you can do to alleviate it or solve the problem. That's a serious one, which I'm currently in a way dealing with. But another one on a lighter thing, but one that used to bother me a lot, was essentially just simple stage fright. I would do a lot of plays, and I'd rehearse, and I'd go to rehearsals, and I was great in rehearsal, but I'll tell you, opening night, the first time you gotta walk out and behind those curtains and do your first line, that got the things moving. All of us did it, but that
It came easier after the first line, didn't it?
sure did. After
But you
that.
know, I find that,
But it stayed with me for a long, 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 long time.
and
Still have it to some
I find
degree.
that the people that are most talented feel the very same way you did.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, I've talked to a lot of people. Do you remember Michelle Galian?
Sure.
She used to anchor at CMH when I was there. She would get so nervous before she would get on air. She would almost go into a tizzy. And she was so good. And I never understood that. But she was the same way. She would have real problems before she went on the air.
Was she type A personality?
I don't know. She could have been.
I've heard people say that the moment you go on stage and you don't get the butterflies, that should be the last time you go on stage.
Right, that's, you're exactly right, Scott.
Because you know that attitude. I remember, I'll never forget this. I was doing a charity thing once, and somebody the night before, I think, was trying to overcome their fright of remembering lines or something of that nature, and said to me, well, if they get it, if I get it, they get it. If they don't, that's their loss. And if you take that attitude toward the audience, you're not going to give your best performance. You're absolutely not going to do it. I don't know. Charlie, do you get butterflies?
No, I don't, and I've given hundreds of speeches at various places, and I've stood before 5,000 people. That was the most, and I don't know. Maybe I just got used to it.
Who was it that said that when you get up in front of a group of people, if you're nervous, just picture that they're all naked.
Naked.
They don't have any clothes on, then maybe.
That doesn't work, though, does it?
I
mean,
don't- I
I
never-
tried that.
Did you try
It
it?
just made me sick. That's all it did. Didn't get me over the stage fright, made me sick. I don't know. You know, it's funny, though, because I talk about saying the names wrong. A few weeks ago, we did a show, and we were talking about the Brady Bill. And we couldn't think of the man's name, and I said Baker, and everybody agreed. It was Jim Brady, who was
Oh.
the White House guy
Definitely.
during Reagan. It wasn't Jim Baker. He did something else. He was busy with Tammy Faye out on the farm doing their thing.
He's on television every day.
Oh, he's back on television?
Oh, he sure is.
Well, the good
He has
ones never
another
go
wife.
away.
He has another wife now, and she also dolls herself up pretty well.
Oh, nobody dolled themselves up like Tammy Faye.
No, not quite, but this lady is working on it.
You know who did her makeup?
No,
Earl Scheib.
is that right?
That's right.
My.
And she had her
You know,
eyebrows
that's what we should
tattooed on.
talk about sometime too. He just used a word that really used to be used all the time, and that is doll up. How many times do you hear anybody say, he's gonna doll up or she's gonna doll up? You know, there are a lot of old-fashioned words that we ought to talk about sometime. because
Like
they're
going to
very
a doings tonight.
Yeah, the doings, right. They're interesting.
Going to a doings. Well, hey, if you're going to a doings tonight, make sure you have fun at your doings. And if you want to
Doll up.
doll up for your doing, here's how you do it.
Or guess
You,
the-
heaven forbid, don't wear your tie below your belt buckle, or your doing group will just hate you. They'll tell you to out of line. If you have a question or comment for the mailbag, you can join us on Facebook under the name The Exchange Marion, or email them to us at irmcommunication@gmail.com. Doll up, go to your doing, see you tomorrow.